Hello and welcome into the Time to live stream here. It is Sunday, December 6th, 2020, week 13. This is the last week of most fantasy football regular seasons. Now, I know some leagues go to week 17, and so week 14 will be the last week next week, but for most leagues, it is just a 16-week season. And so this week 13, this is your last chance to get in the playoffs. I know I'm not confident in getting into all the playoffs in my leagues. I know there are a couple leagues that I think I'm going to be in the playoffs, and then there's a couple leagues that I need some very minor miracles to happen for me to get in. Tones, what are your feelings about week 13? Last week of the regular season seems like it's gone by very fast.
Yeah, it's gone by incredibly fast, and it's another great time skew kickoff show. I'm in 8 leagues, actually, so we'll see how much of the playoffs I make out of those 8. One of them is actually a gauntlet league, kind of, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week, starts off at 17 teams and dwindles down to 1. It's the first year I've done something like that, so that was pretty fun in a fantasy format, and I'm still alive in that. I mean, I can't believe it's already week 13, man. I'm just happy to be here talking fantasy. Again, good luck to everyone in playoffs. I'm looking like I might be about 5 for 8 in playoff opportunities in fantasy. If things go right, I should be 5 for 8.
5 for 8, man. I wish I even got 5.
Well, you
I'm
had
not
some
even
fun,
sure,
though,
though.
man. You had an initials league and an initials team, and you've had some fun.
Yeah. I'm just hoping I can win one game with those guys, one actual game. I won one game, but also like the guy that was playing wasn't paying attention anymore. He still had Christian McCaffrey in his lineup when he was on IR. So I hope I can win at least one game in those leagues. But in my real leagues, I'm thinking I'll make 4 playoffs. So
That ain't bad still. 4 playoffs, 4 opportunities to redeem yourself.
yeah, yeah. Well, looking into some news and notes for today, actually some surprising news, at least to me. It looks like Julio Jones and Todd Gurley will be good to go. They're active. Looks like they will play in tonight's game for the Atlanta Falcons. And also some news from the Miami Dolphins. Myles Gaskin is active and looking to play today. Savon Ahmed, trying to remember, Savon Ahmed, Matt Breida, and I believe DeAndre Washington will be inactive. So it's looking like Myles Gaskin will get a heavy dosage of the workload, a heavy workload coming straight back from injury, which I'm not really sure how to feel about that. The Miami Dolphins, they are going against the Cincinnati Bengals, so it should be a good matchup. But Tones, what's your confidence in Gaskin coming back from injury?
Well, I feel like they might have to rely on him more heavy than usual for a running back coming off an injury because Tua T, their starting quarterback, which, by the way, the Dolphins' young rookie quarterback's agent blew the identity yesterday. I think they were trying to hide his health. And then Tua's agent yesterday said, "Oh, I can't wait to watch Tua play tomorrow." So then people were like, "Oh my gosh, is Tua going to play?" And now it seems like Tua's going to play, but obviously his finger is really, really in bad conditions. I think that they're going to have to rely on the ground game perhaps a bit more. And when Tua does throw, he might look to dump the ball off a little bit more. Gaskins is coming off an injury. He's missed a couple of weeks now, but man, you could trust this guy. I think especially in PPR formats, Myles Gaskins will have or should at least have a big day. He's lined up for a big one, especially with Tua being injured and all those other Dolphins running backs you named are injured and probably inactive. So I think that he's going to be in line for at least a big workload. We'll see if it results in production on a lackluster Bengals defense.
Yeah, I know the past few years, or at least the past 2 years, I've been very disappointed in the production of Dolphins running backs. Obviously, it was not Balaj season last year, but Myles Gaskin has looked better when he has been playing. Looks like we got our first question of the day coming in from It's Fragger. Pick 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. Kareem Hunt, Austin Eckler, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift, Wayne Gallman, DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Keenan Allen, and Adam Thielen.
That is tough.
Yeah, that is tough. I think From the running backs, the definite starts that I think you'd play at running back would be Austin Eckler and Wayne Gallman. They're both going to get the majority of the work from their team. Austin Eckler, I thought he'd have a limited role coming back last week. Obviously, that was not in the plan for Anthony Lynn. And as for Wayne Gallman, he's going up against the Seattle Seahawks. And with Colt McCoy looking to start at quarterback for the Giants, I don't think their passing attack is going to be as much utilized as in weeks prior with Daniel Jones. And so I think they're going to hand the ball off to Wayne Gallman, which is going to be good because, as we've been saying all season, this Seattle Seahawks defense is not good. So it'll be good for Wayne Gallman going forward there. As for the two wide receivers, I think I would lean towards Brandon Cooks as one of them, since he's really the only viable option left in that Texans passing game. The number 2 option is Kiki QT, who, I mean, unless you're really into fantasy football, I doubt you really know who Kiki QT even is. And as for the other wide receiver, I think Keenan Allen would probably be the other best option. He's been getting like double-digit targets every week since Justin Herbert's been starting for them, which leaves for the flex. It's a little difficult for me. I mean, you've got some great options in Kareem Hunt, Adam Thielen, and DeAndre Hopkins. Tones, what's your opinions about this?
Well, I know for the running back situation, first of all, I know DeAndre Swift is doubtful today, so you could pretty much eliminate him. And even if, he did play via miracle, it looks like that he wouldn't play much because AP and Kerryon Johnson have been taking first team reps. And then Kareem Hunt, he's productive, but he's tricky as he's in a backup role. I would roll here with Austin Eckler and Wayne Gallman. I think Eckler is going to catch a lot of balls out of that backfield. Herbert and him connected for 11 times, I believe, last week. So they were tearing it up. And then Wayne Gallman, we believe, is going to continue his touchdown success. I mean, Wayne Gallman is an under-the-radar fantasy option, especially with Colt McCoy at quarterback now. This is a guy whose value could even increase, perhaps. I think that it's going to increase. Last week, he had 24 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. The week before that, 70 yards and a touchdown on the ground. I mean, he's a touchdown machine. Against Tampa, had one. Against Philly, had one. He just keeps getting touchdowns. I'd feel comfortable going with Gallman and Eckler there. And then 2 wide receivers. It's hard not to start DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going with him there. And then I'm going to roll with, that's a tough one. Brandon Cooks is intriguing because Houston doesn't really have anyone, but I think they're up against a little bit of a tough matchup. I'm going with Adam Thielen on a vengeance trail against a lackluster Jacksonville defense. So I'm going with running backs, Eckler and Gallman. Then I'm going with Thielen and Hopkins. And then for the flex, I'm going with Mostert because when he plays pretty damn well. So that's the 5 guys I'm rolling with.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Eckler and Gallman for my running backs that I suggest, and then Brandon Cooks and Keenan Allen for the wide receivers, and then for the flex. I'm a little worried that Adam Thielen might come off of this high that he's been on for the past 2 weeks. He's had 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks. And so I'm a little worried that he might come down and have a bummer of a game, but I think you still got to roll with Adam Thielen there in your flex. And I know you say that you're a little worried about Jalen Ramsey against DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen against Gilmore, but honestly, for Keenan Allen, he's still going to get targeted ad nauseum. So if he's not performing, then really this entire passing game isn't going to be performing. And I mean, when you got a guy like Justin Herbert, it'd be surprising if he's not able to perform even against the tough Patriots. And as for DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, Jalen Ramsey, that is going to be a very tough matchup, but also DeAndre Hopkins he's amazing, dude.
Yeah, and my honest opinion, not to run you short here, but I think looking into defender matchups is a little bit too much when you're talking about elite wide receivers. I mean, Hopkins and Allen, they've been around the block a little bit. They pretty much faced any cornerback competition around the NFL, all sorts of levels, and they've had success against them all. I never think you should shy away based on a matchup. Just my personal opinion. I don't think the NFL anymore is like guys just throw so damn much that people can always have a big day. So yeah, I'm just saying I wouldn't shy away for matchup play.
Yeah. I mean, also, I want to say that's a pretty impressive roster you got there. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, and Adam Thielen looking like they're going to finish as top 12 wide receivers on the year. That's a lineup I wish I had.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's more like an all-star fantasy lineup right there.
yeah. Anyway, next question coming in from Joseph Areola. No PPR, Mike Williams or Michael Pittman Jr. I I've been really high on Michael Pittman Jr. as of the last couple weeks. He's been really my favorite option on the Colts going for, because I mean Jonathan Taylor has been disappointing, Naheem Hines has been inconsistent, but I think the past couple of weeks I've been really getting on to Michael Pittman Jr. He did have a little bit of a down week last week, only 2 receptions for 28 yards, but I want to pay attention that he still had 9 targets. He's still getting looks coming his way. I think it was just a tough day last week for Indianapolis taking on Tennessee. They just kind of got their money stolen from them by Derrick Henry and them. And so I think coming into this week, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans, it's a great secondary matchup for Michael Pittman to kind of come back from. And Mike Williams, for me, he just is too inconsistent in getting his targets. Like I was saying before, Keenan Allen gets almost all the targets from the Chargers, and Mike Williams then is just kind of he's he's kind of lucky to get 5, if that. So I think I would go with Michael Pittman because he's just more used and more utilized on the Colts offense than Mike Williams is on the Chargers offense.
Yeah, the Chargers too. They just look. I mean, now that Eckler's back too, he had 16 targets last week out of the backfield. Austin Eckler, that's remarkable. So you know that a couple of those are getting stolen from Mike Williams, and then as you said, they have Keenan Allen, and then they have Henry, one of the better receptions tight ends, who takes some targets away from everyone as well, and then they have that Guyton deep threat that they like to use. They used to like to use Mike Williams deep a lot, but now I know they have that young speedster. So I do like Michael Pittman Jr. as well. I think that Michael Pittman is one of those guys who is up and coming for the Colts. Before last week, he was on an upward trend against Baltimore. I believe he had almost 60 receiving yards, and the next week he went over 100, and then he went 66 and a touchdown deep, and then last week he cooled off a little bit, but before that he was on the rise. I would stick with Michael Pittman Jr. for sure um, over Mike Williams, and I'd feel okay about it in a non-PPR league. And then real quick from Twitter, we got a question coming in from Pops. It says Matthew Stafford or Baker Mayfield, no negative points. Stafford is banged up and versus the Bears. Pride, what do you think, Stafford or Baker Mayfield? And this is in a 2 QB league too, I believe. So, but he only needs to start one of them.
Gosh, I really do not like Baker Mayfield. I mean, I think really his game last week kind of really showed what I think about him. I mean, I know there was one play where he honestly pressured himself. He was in a relatively clean pocket. He had a guy wide open right over the middle for an easy touchdown, and he just, for some reason, leaned back, threw off his back foot, and just over his head. I think that's a perfect representation of Baker Mayfield there. And so I'm not confident in him, and even going up against the Titans defense, who's been pretty on and off so far. I feel like they've got some momentum being the Colts last week. They might be figuring some stuff out. Variable might be figuring some stuff out for his defense. And so it could be another tough week for the Browns. So I think even though it's going to be a risk, I think it's a risk either way. But I think I'd be willing to go with Matthew Stafford, even going up against a tough Bears defense. I think with a new head coach, there's going to be kind of some new adrenaline pumping through this team, and he's going to just kind of play his own kind of football and just air it out as much as he can. I'm not expecting a great game, but I'm expecting just a solid one.
Yeah, this one's honestly a pretty tough question this week because Baker Mayfield is arguably coming off. It's not a great game by any means, but maybe his best game this season, especially as a fantasy quarterback. Last week, he threw for 258 yards, two touchdowns, no turnovers, and then had 4 carries for a yard. I know it was at Jacksonville, but Baker Mayfield looked decent last week. Matt Stafford still put up almost 300 yards and a touchdown last week with the thumb that you would figure to be a little more healed up this week. As Pride said, this one's a tough one, but it's just hard to put your trust and stock into Baker Mayfield. Stafford might come out guns blazing, kind of like Matt Ryan has with the new head coach a little bit. So we've seen guys come out fired up. Deshaun Watson's played incredible football under Bill O'Brien. This might be the time that Matt Stafford quits being a dog-faced pony soldier, puts his big boy pants on, and says, "Hey, Patricia's out that door. I'm going to throw some good footballs now." So I'm going to lean Matt Stafford just because I think he's the type of guy who, when his playing ground is the one that's how should I say it? He likes his scenery, and now that Patricia's gone, I think Stafford's got his scenery back. I'm expecting a big day from him today.
Yeah, and also just one more thing on that. Baker Mayfield has 6 games under 200 yards passing. Matt Stafford only has 1. So, gotta like that. Next question coming in from Travis Harrison. Pick one flex PPR. Parker, Godwin, Hines, or Dobbins? Whew.
Well, and then he
I
says
mean,
no Godwin at
yeah.
CEH because Godwin's on a bye week. I was gonna say,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I was about to say, like, aren't the Bucks on a bye? But yeah, not Godwin, CEH. And so out of those guys, Devontae Parker, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Naheem Hines, and J.K. Dobbins. Ooh. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Devontae Parker when Tua Tagovailoa is in at quarterback. I feel like he's not as guns a-blazing as Ryan Fitzpatrick is. They don't air the ball out as much. But also Naheem Hines, very inconsistent, like I've said before. J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins hasn't impressed me so far this season. Neither has really CEH. I need to look at some matchups quick.
what's really hard too is like, with the Ravens backfield is the Ravens just have so many COVID question marks right now. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I know he's supposed to play tomorrow, but people are still unsure of that. So, Dobbins just got off the COVID list. You got Gus Edwards there to take away carries. You got Mark Ingram supposedly healthy, although he hasn't really been carrying the football too well. So I'm not really sure if I like Dobbins out of this situation. I don't really like Parker with Tua, as Pride said, which really becomes down to Naheem Hines and CEH. And honestly, the Chiefs against a tough Broncos defense, I'm probably rolling with Naheem Hines against a vulnerable Texans D. The other Colts backs really haven't been doing too much. I expect Hines to continue taking over today.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you there. I think it would be between Hines and CEH, but I just don't trust the Chiefs in utilizing their rushing offense because I think we saw even kind of against the Jets, even when they were blowing out the Jets in that game, they were still throwing the ball a lot. And so I just can't really trust them giving CEH the touches.
Yeah, and even last week, when they were up pretty good against the Buccaneers later in the game, I know it ended up being a 3-point game, but they were still throwing the football, to guys not named CEH. They were targeting the likes of, their big time guys like Hill and Kelsey, which is understandable, but CEH seems to get chinsed a little bit there. Speaking of the Chiefs, we got another question in from Twitter. This one from Brett. No negatives. Pick one. Le'Veon Bell, Jarrett McKinnon, Malcolm Brown. You answered that one first, Mr. Pride. Le'Veon Bell, Jarrett McKinnon, Malcolm Brown, the battle of the backup running backs. Which one prevails?
Ah, that, I hate that they're all backups, but Malcolm Brown, he's not really even seen the field that much recently in that Rams offense. Le'Veon Bell has never I mean, like if I'm doubtful about CEH's workload, then I can't even begin to trust Le'Veon Bell's workload with the Chiefs. So he only had like one good game, so I think I would have to lean more towards Jet McKinnon. I mean, I know as of recently he has not been used as much in the 49ers offense, but I know over the season he's had more consistent usage, partly because of injury, but even with everyone coming back, I think he's still going to be utilized a lot as a receiving threat out of the backfield. That's how they kind of used him. I remember in the first game or two of the season when Raheem Mostert was back. So I think he'll be used as more of a receiving back, and I think that's as much as you can hope for out of those running backs. I think Jet McKinnon is who I'm going with.
Yeah, this one's a tough one. It's like, each of these guys have had their potential plenty of times this season as backup running backs, quote unquote. Obviously, Bell in his time with the Jets, and then Brown and Henderson were kind of who's going to get more touches at one point with the Rams. And then it was like, the ladder of the running backs. McKinnon, he's been in and out due to other running backs' health. I think McKinnon does have the best chance of having a productive day. He showed it. He could still be productive with other guys. Le'Veon Bell has never quite got off the ground running with the Chiefs yet to this point. And then I just don't think you could trust the other option, and it's a tough one. Malcolm Brown is getting submerged by Cam Akers as we speak, I feel, so I'm going to go with Jarrett McKinnon.
Yeah, yeah. Next question coming in from Olivia Scordato. Noah Fant or Brashad Perryman? Oof. That's all I can really say when you have to consider playing a Jets wide receiver not named, or even just a Jets wide receiver in general. I'm still not on Jameson Crowder ever since his injury, so I think I would have to go with Noah Fant in this situation. I know, considering that you're deciding between a tight end and a wide receiver, you're probably playing it in your flex. So I know it's not always wise to go with a tight end in your flex spot, but it works sometimes. And I think, especially with the Broncos getting an actual quarterback, or at least someone who knows the offensive system and has some chemistry with their pass catchers, I think it'll be much better for Noah Fant. And honestly, he's probably going to be the best receiving threat for this Broncos team against a pretty porous Chiefs defense. And so, yeah, Noah Fant. I don't even know who the Jets are playing today, but I know that the offensive genius Adam Gase is going to limit their offense as much as he can.
Jets are home against Vegas, who's a little banged up, but I do agree with you, I think. But I think Brashad Perriman's ceiling is higher. The last three games he had against New England, 5 receptions for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Against the Chargers, he had 54 yards and a touchdown last week, 4 catches for 80 yards. I think Perriman's ceiling is higher, but I would go with Noah Fant because his floor is higher. You know that Noah Fant's going to be getting the targets with Drew Lock back against a bad Chiefs defense. You know that they have to go to Fant, and Fant hasn't scored since week 2. He's long overdue. I think it's his time to get back into the end zone. Drew Lock is going to want to have this Broncos team playing good. He's probably pissed off after the NFL screwed the pooch on that one last week. I mean, what a bunch of, Roger Goodell's an idiot postponing Ravens Steelers until Tuesday or Wednesday, and then forcing the damn Broncos to play without a quarterback on Sunday. That's another story to discuss. I think that Drew Lock will be fired up. I'm going with Noah Fant over Perriman. Although if Perriman gets hot, we've seen it last year, we've seen it at times this year. It could get interesting, but go with Noah Fant.
Yeah. Next question coming from Matthew A. He asked Lamar or Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins. Even if Lamar Jackson does play, I'm more confident in Kirk Cousins because as of recently, Cousins has actually been surprisingly just on fire. I mean, I think it helps. He has two of the top fantasy wide receivers on the season, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. But, you just look at the past 3 games, his totals, he's averaging around 300 yards in those games. He's had a total of, quick maths, 8 touchdowns over the past 3 games, only 1 interception. That was against Chicago. So over the past 2 games, he's had 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Really love to see that. And, even with Dalvin Cook supposedly getting a lot of work out of the backfield, he still had at least 30 passing attempts in those games. So, yeah, I really like Kirk Cousins, and especially with Dalvin Cook kind of being a little up in the air. He didn't play much of the game last week because of a minor injury. I think he's going to be good to go for this week, but even then, I don't think that they're going to want to overwork him, especially against the Jacksonville Jaguars team, who is not going they should not really make this too much of a game against the Vikings. So I'm sure they'll make sure that Dalvin Cook isn't too overworked, and they'll just let Kirk air it out.
Yeah, and the hard part here is, I mean, Lamar Jackson, they're playing so late in the week that you never know if somebody, some COVID stuff could happen. Lamar could easily, even if it's a false positive, whatever, there could be a number of things that could happen to Lamar Jackson. And then it looks like two of his top three targets, Willie Snead and Mark Andrews, are probably going to miss that game as well. As Pride said, Kirk Cousins goes against one of the worst teams in football today. Doug Marone's already got his bags packed and his hotel circled at where he's going to stay next. But I'm going with Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to make it a long day. And as Pride said, they might want to take it a little bit easy on their best player and perhaps best running back in the National Football League, Dalvin Cook. They want to take it easy on him today. That's for damn sure. So maybe that Kirk Cousins will be used a little more. Maybe he's going to throw to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen a lot, and maybe get his tight end Smith and Rudolph involved. So I like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was kind of a wrench thrown into it because I believe Alexander Madison is, I think he's dealing with, I want to say like appendicitis or something,
Mm.
something not good. And so, really, Dalvin Cook may be the only running back viable for the Vikings, but I think they still said that they want to be smart with his usage, and so I'm sure they're going to be passing the ball a lot.
Yeah, and actually, Pride, little news here. It's kind of good that Carolina is on a bye week this week because breaking news from Adam Schefter, Carolina Panthers are having players test positive as of this morning. The Panthers are on a bye today, so NFL now will look to identify, isolate, and contain the virus in Carolina. But as we keep learning this season, it's not going to come easy. It seems as a trend. People go on bye weeks and perhaps are more susceptible to getting the virus for whatever reason. But yeah, guys, if you own Carolina Panthers, just kind of be on the lookout. They haven't announced who yet, but it does look like they're dealing with the COVID bug.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really disappointing because I remember the MLB, they had a big strain of COVID kind of go throughout their system early on in the season, but they were able to keep it under wraps. Whereas with the NFL, they're getting down the stretch and now they're having some big COVID cases. That's kind of disappointing. But moving on to our next question, Clutchful asks, pick one to start: Raheem Mostert, Antonio Gibson, Myles Gaskin, Antonio Gibson. Antonio, he's got a tough matchup this week, Washington going up against that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. But I mean, it's going to be tough on Gibson, but it's going to be more tough on Alex Smith. And so Ron Rivera is going to want to run the ball more than he passes it. Alex Smith, he just hasn't seemed to do well in pressure situations. And so I think they're going to try and alleviate that pressure as much as they can, running with Antonio Gibson. And honestly, that offensive line has not looked too bad over the past couple games. Um, I believe that they have. Let me look to see. I want to say that they have. Yeah, the entire offensive line, thankfully, has not had to deal with too much injury. I mean, they've got some great guys there in Brandon Scherf and Morgan Moses, who I think they'll have some difficulty, but I think in the end they'll still be able to create some holes for him against this tough Steelers defense. And I mean, out of those options, I feel like Antonio Gibson, especially after his 3 touchdown game, is the best to go with.
Yeah, definitely three good options. But I mean, Antonio Gibson now has 8 touchdowns in 5 games. His past 5 games, he scored 8 times, which is just eye-opening. And he has over 100 yards in 2 of those games. He has 94 yards in another one of those games. He has at least 20 receiving yards in 3 of those games. Although he's against a tough Steelers D, as I was kind of saying earlier, I don't really view tough defenses as my point to not play somebody. I don't know. I would just always feel dumb if I were to sit one of my big money makers like Antonio Gibson just because he's against the Steelers and then he goes off. I'd feel better playing him and losing than perhaps playing a Mostert or Gaskins and going down because they could get hurt. They're both susceptible to injury, both of their backfields. I know Gaskin is a clear cut one this week, but it's just hard to not play Antonio Gibson, especially after the big game he had on Turkey Day.
Yeah. Next question coming in from Michael. He asked, Rodgers or Mahomes? How did you get both those guys?
Yeah. So, I know what happened. Some leagues offered the State Farm quarterback commercial package where if you drafted one, you got the other in your bylaws. So I'm guessing that's what Michael took advantage of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like both their matchups going up against the Broncos secondary, even with AJ Boye back, I feel like has been very attackable. And the Eagles, they're the Eagles. Their best part of their defense is their defensive line, but I mean that doesn't matter much with how fast Mahomes can get the ball out. So, or wait, sorry, I flipped those. The Eagles' defensive line, that doesn't matter much with how fast Devontae Adams can get wide open for Aaron Rodgers. So I think in the end, I'm just going to go with Patrick Mahomes just because he's higher on the season. He's averaged more fantasy points, and even though I don't think you can go wrong with either, I think you'll just go with Mahomes in this one.
Yeah, I'd lean Mahomes here. It's hard not to start Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers is great, easily a top fantasy quarterback, but obviously Patrick Mahomes is the best fantasy quarterback option just about week in, week out. And he's at home on prime time tonight. It's hard to believe that Mahomes is going to do anything less than spectacular in this game. And we got another question from Twitter Pride. Running back PPR, pick one, McKissick or Montgomery? Bears are playing the Lions, and Washington's playing Steelers. So who do you like there in a PPR, McKissick or Montgomery?
Oh, I think you definitely need to go Montgomery in this one. We saw last week McKissick did not get the same kind of targets that he usually got with Alex Smith at quarterback. McKissick is almost purely a receiving back. Antonio Gibson's taken control of the rushing load, and so if he's not getting targets out of the backfield, it's not going to be a good day. And also, David Montgomery had a great week last week. If I just look it up real quickly, David Montgomery, he's been very lackluster this season. I really thought he was going to break out, but really last week he did kind of break out. It was his first 100-yard rushing game of the season. He also caught 5 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown. And honestly, I think he's going to have another 100-yard rushing game this week going up against the Detroit Lions. I mean, we saw last week the Lions going up against Duke Johnson, the Houston Texans. Duke Johnson really disappointed the first 2 weeks that he was filling in for David Johnson. And I'm not sure how many people played him, but if you did play him last week, you were very happy. The Lions, I believe, have the worst rushing defense in the NFL right now, at least in terms of fantasy. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with your logic there. I'm going with Montgomery. He had over 100 yards last week. He had a receiving touchdown last week. He's going to look to carry the momentum. I think the Bears might look at this guy right now and say, hey, he's pretty much, besides Allen Robinson, the one guy that we could perhaps try and lean on to get our quarterback play out of misery, to try and right the ship here a little bit. I'm going with Montgomery. I think the Washington football team has developed some chemistry with Antonio Gibson in the game, especially. I don't think that McKissick's a bad running back by any means, but I think they're going to continue to kind of shape Antonio Gibson into that premier number one type running back that they hope he would turn into when they drafted him. And I think that's where it's heading. So I would go Montgomery. The Bears also want to see what they have with Montgomery in the last couple games this year, perhaps before next year's draft and off season. So I'm going with David Montgomery. And as Pride said, that Lions defense, they're not bad. They're really damn bad, and they looked that way last week against Duke Johnson, a guy a lot of people had playing a bad game last week.
Yeah, and I think we've shown, even though Houston has improved since getting a interim head coach, their defense really hasn't. So that shouldn't change. Jeremiah Hudson asked the next question: Antonio Gibson, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Devontae Booker, Wayne Gallman, or Sanders. Pick three, please. PPR. I'm guessing since it's mostly running backs, it's going to be Miles Sanders. And in that case, I mean, Antonio Gibson, for reasons already explained, I think you'll go with him there. Wayne Gallman, I'm also confident in. I think, like I said earlier, they're going to be running most of the game through him with Colt McCoy at quarterback. And out of the rest of the guys, I think I would lean towards. I think I would lean more towards Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, I definitely like Antonio Gibson and Wayne Gallman as a group as well. And then I don't think you could trust Jonathan Taylor enough at this point with the impact that Nyheim Hines has been making. And Wilkins does run pretty well when he's given his few touches. Dobbins just has so many running backs back there to compete against. It's tough for him with Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, Mark Ingram, etc. And then Booker, it's just hard to trust him how the Raiders are going to play that one today. I know he gets some carries and garbage time this year, but he's never started a game yet this year, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But ultimately, I'm going Gallman, Gibson, and Miles Sanders. I like Miles Sanders' potential of saying skew you today for those people that are benching him, perhaps, in lieu of a bad game last week. He's going to turn around, be on your bench this week and go off and say, skew you. I think Miles Sanders has a good game this week. I think, I mean, honestly, not that it was anything big last week, but I would have lost if he didn't get that 2-point conversion. So maybe that's why I'm thinking him a little more. But I think the Eagles might have to figure out here, hey, how to get this offense going? Gee whiz. Is it going to be Alshon Jeffrey? No. Is it going to be Carson Wentz who lobs the ball every time? No. Get the damn Miles Sanders involved, one of the best playmakers in the NFL. Get Miles Sanders involved.
Oh, come on. I feel like you're giving Doug Peterson too much credit on Decipher.
I heard he might be on the hot seat today, honestly.
I mean, I would not be surprised. Next question coming in from the Chosen Rose: Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry or Devontae Parker now, since Tua might be starting. Like I said, with it looking like Tua is going to be starting even against a bad Bengals defense, I think I might be more willing to go with Jarvis Landry, because Jarvis Landry is definitely the only consistent receiving threat on the Cleveland Browns. And so, I mean, that is a great match. That is a matchup that I really like for Devontae Parker, but in the end, he's really burnt me whenever Tua has played. There was like one game where he had a touchdown, which, I mean, I like the touchdown, but I didn't like that he got it on only one reception for 13 yards. And so it was nice, but I wanted more. And I think that Jarvis Landry is more capable of getting me more.
Yeah, Devontae Parker has been hard to trust this year with Tua, especially. Jarvis Landry going up against a Titans defense that has definitely been suspect against the pass this year. They're ranked in the late 20s against the pass this year. Jarvis Landry also is coming off by far his best game of the season last week, where he went for over 140 yards and a touchdown against a really good, no, just kidding, against the Jaguars defense. But I'm still trusting Jarvis Landry this week. Devontae Parker, he might get you 40, 50 yards and maybe a touchdown. But as we've seen with Landry last week, man, he has the ability to perhaps go off. And let's see if he could do that this week. I'm going with Landry.
Yeah, and let's quickly answer another question. You like Landry? Do you like him better than Marquise Brown?
Oh, yeah, laundry or Brown. I hope you don't have to do laundry today in Miss Football, but no, I'm going with Landry over Marquise Brown, even though Brown had that last glimpse of hope last week or Wednesday. Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it's getting weird here, man. But felt like a bowl game. Felt like one of those Bahama bowl games from college football. But I'm going with Landry over Marquise Brown.
Yeah, yeah. I would say the same. Next question coming in from Bars in the Tuck. Morning, pick one. Alex Smith, Nick Mullins, Colt McCoy, and Brandon Allen. Dude, I'm
Six
so
point
sorry.
touchdown, 6 point touchdowns. Damn. I mean, it's unfortunate you're given that pot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude, that you have those options. But out of those guys, uh,
I think based on respect reasons, you got to go Alex Smith. I mean, he's against a tough matchup and he's not been doing great. But let's be honest, are you really going to trust Mullins, Colt McCoy, or Brandon Allen to deliver you a good game? Just be it. Look at the options here, write them down on paper, and then say to yourself, if I need a miracle from one guy here, am I going to trust on the almighty Nick Mullins? Am I going to trust on the prestigious Colt McCoy, the immaculate Brandon Allen, or that veteran who's done it all, Alex Smith? I'm going with Alex Smith. I know he's against a tough matchup, but also sit one Monty, Gaskin, Gibson non PPR. I'm between
I
Monty and Gaskin. I'm probably going to sit Monty there. I'm going to go with Alex Smith start, sit Monty. Although I like those three running backs.
yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Alex Smith too, because I mean Nick Mullins and Brandon Allen have looked worse than Alex Smith as of recently, and Colt McCoy. I mean, we only really saw him for half a game last time, and so I don't know what to go off of. But I know that Giants defense or that Giants offense was not really running well, even with Daniel Jones. Even given that it was Daniel Jones running the offense, it was not looking too good. And so I think that Alex Smith will be the best option. Even if not, I believe more in Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick making plays out of the backfield and on the line. So yeah, and also for the sit, I would more sit Miles Gaskin. Like I've said before, I don't really trust this this Miles offense, this Miami rushing offense. I don't know why, if it's maybe their offensive line coach doesn't know how to teach his guys how to block well or that, but I just don't really trust it. And I think I think if Tua is starting, the Bengals may be more keyed in on the run. Just something to worry about. And I really like Antonio Gibson just because it's Antonio Gibson. I really like Montgomery's matchup this week.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong there. It's definitely tough. I guess I just think Gaskin might be the guy for Miami to lean on, but I like Montgomery too. I don't think you could go wrong with either one. And yeah, in a two QB league, I now see, yeah, that doesn't look so bad now that that's your second
Okay.
quarterback.
Okay. Now I understand a little
See,
more.
sometimes these questions we can't be mind readers, so sometimes these questions are a little tough. But yeah, I think in a two QB league, Mahomes and Alex Smith are honestly a pretty good two QB 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last season when I was in a two QB league, I was kind of forced to play Brandon Allen when he was playing with the Broncos, and it wasn't fun. And so I hope you have a better time playing Alex Smith over Brandon Allen.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Next question coming in from the Chosen Rose: Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Corey Davis, or Cooper Cup. Pick two.
Mm.
Like I've been, I mean, I feel like I've been kind of ragging on Devontae Parker, so I can't really. So he's definitely going to be out for me out of those guys. So hmm, hmm. I think I'll stick with Jarvis Landry. We've kind of talked him up a little bit, and the Rams are going up against the Arizona Cardinals today. I'm not really sure how to feel about that matchup as it pertains to Cooper Cup. I mean, Patrick Pearson has been looking pretty good. He's looked a lot better than he has in recent years so far this season in locking people down. So I'm not sure how much he'll be on Cooper Cup today. That is a little worrying. And Corey Davis, I feel like, is kind of a wild card. He has been used a lot more recently for the Titans offense, but also AJ Brown kind of taking away. I think I'm going to say definitely Jarvis Landry, and I think I'm going to go with Corey Davis for the other one.
Yeah, this one's a little tough. Now that we got to pick two, the Titans officially did rule Janu Smith as inactive today, perhaps upticking Corey Davis's value a little bit, get him some more targets, perhaps. This one's tough. I'm gonna go. I think Cooper Cup and I'd go Cooper Cup and Corey Davis, or I don't know. I'd go Cooper Cup and Landry. I'm going Cooper Cup and Landry. I do like Corey Davis as his targets will be uptick as Janu Smith is out, but I think that it could be another Derrick Henry day for them. Perhaps I'm going with Landry and Cooper Cup. Although it's definitely a tough one, I'd go Cooper Cup for sure, and then probably Landry.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. Corey Davis has had the last 3 games, he hasn't had under 67 yards receiving, but he also hasn't caught a touchdown since week 8. So that is a little bit worrying. But yeah, I think as long as you don't play Devontae Parker, I don't really think that you can go too wrong in that.
I agree.
Our next question coming in from Mike Smith: Miles Sanders or Kenyon Drake or Jonathan Taylor or Giovanni Bernard? Pick 2, full PPR. Uh, I'm sorry, dude. I don't really like your backfield.
I'm tapping out Jonathan Taylor already. I'm just going to put it out there. Jonathan Taylor's just hard to trust right now with Nyheim Hines kind of overtaking that role a little bit. And then they also have Wilkins there too. I kind of think Taylor might be stored a little more for next year. Although against Green Bay, he did come out with 22 for 90. So it'll be interesting to see how Jonathan Taylor comes out this week. If I did have to choose ultimately, though, I'm probably going Giovanni Bernard because he has proven that he's a viable option when Joe Mixon's out. Last week, he didn't have too great of a game. And actually, the past couple weeks, he's been a little slower than usual, but Miles Sanders hasn't really perform much either. This one's tough. Kenyon Drake, to me, you got to start. Then it may come down to Bernard or Sanders. Ultimately, I'm going Drake and Sanders just based on, potential. Potential in Drake and Sanders is probably higher than Taylor and Bernard on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Kenyon Drake, he's been more used, at least in the red zone, by the Cardinals in recent weeks. And Giovanni Bernard's been kind of on a downswing so far. I mean, ever since the Tennessee game, he hasn't even broken 10 carries. I think he only got exactly 10 touches last week. And so that is really tough to go with him. And Miles Sanders, I know he's good. I don't know why the Eagles don't use him more. I'm hoping that they use him more. I'm hoping, especially against this Packers team, who is kind of a little bit susceptible to the run. And so, yeah, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders. Don't think about Jonathan Taylor. He's just. I know a lot of people are always like, they just keep hurting themselves. They're like, this week is Jonathan Taylor time, and it's never Jonathan Taylor time.
Yeah. It's tough to get behind him. It's tough to play him. I like the two options of Sanders and Drake.
Yeah. Mike Smith also has another question. He says, I ask this question every Sunday. Justin Herbert or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Pick one, full PPR. I think first off, you can rule out Lamar Jackson. Just coming off of the COVID reserve list and playing a Tuesday game. I don't know. Any games past Monday so far this season, I have not liked at all. And so I'm assuming that this Tuesday game is going to be very similar to that, even going up against a Dallas Cowboys defense who, they have looked better in recent weeks. So that's even more concerning for me for Lamar Jackson, because I know he can really feed off of weak defenses, but this Cowboys defense is trying they're trying really hard to kind of dig themselves out of the grave that they dug earlier in the season. So that's a little worrying. But as for Justin Herbert and Josh Allen, Justin Herbert going up against the New England Patriots, Josh Allen taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Um, I don't want to be biased, and I mean, I doubt I can even sound biased with how much I what how critical I am against Justin Herbert. Honestly, I don't think that Chargers fans like me just because I criticize him for throwing interceptions every now and then. But I think that Justin Herbert will be a better matchup here against the New England Patriots. I mean, these are both tough defenses, but I'm a little more scared with John Brown not being there for the Buffalo Bills. And last week, Richard Sherman really showed how much of a difference he can make being back on this 49ers team. So that's a little worrying to me. So I think I'm going to go with Justin Herbert over Josh Allen on this one.
Yeah, this is. I mean, it is quite amazing again how you did end up with these three. I'm gonna go with Josh. It's Herbert or Allen. I think we named earlier why Jackson's a little sketchy to trust this week. Uh, I'm going to go with Josh Allen just based on potential Monday Night Football role with Josh Allen against the 49ers defense that is getting a little healthy but still a little banged up. Herbert's been very good this year, but last week he seemed to check it down a little bit more instead of taking deep shots down the field. Maybe that's a new thing with Austin Eckler, the short gains, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm going with Josh Allen in this one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't really know what to think of that Bills defense or Bills offense right now. I mean, they've just been inconsistent, it seems, so far this season, but yeah, I just don't know. I mean, Justin Herbert with Austin Eckler back in the fold could very well not get the same amount of yards that we're used to just because he's checking it down a lot more. But
Right.
let's get on to our next question. Austin Hill comes in and asks, am I wrong for wanting to start Montgomery and Gaskin over Miles Sanders in full PPR? No, you're not. We've talked about it a little so far on this live stream, but yeah, I don't believe so. I mean, I love Montgomery's matchup this week going up against the Lions. Said before they've got the worst rushing defense in the league, and so I think he's going to have a great game. And Miles Gaskin being back and with three of their other running backs being out this week, he's looking to get a full workload. And it's understandable. Whereas Miles Sanders, he's for some reason he just hasn't been utilized a lot. I mean, in their last game against the Seattle Seahawks, arguably one of, if not the worst defense in the league, he was only given the ball 6 times on the ground and and only had 2 receptions. He only had 8 touches in the game. He's arguably their best skill position player, but he was only given the ball 8 times, only ran for 15 yards, and only caught 7 receiving yards for in half PPR leagues. That's a whopping 5.2 points. And I played him last week. I was very disappointed. So going up this week against a Packers team who, honestly, the Packers are probably going to just absolutely destroy them. So Doug Peterson will be trying to throw the ball as much as possible. So honestly, Miles Sanders might have below 10 touches again this week, and I would not be surprised with just how ineffective the offense has been. So yeah, I don't think you're wrong at all for wanting to start Montgomery and Gaskin over Sanders.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong either necessarily. Me personally, I would start Sanders just because his potential and their ability of needing to get him the football because they are struggling and he's not touching the football. To me, there's a correlation there, but you're definitely not wrong. I mean, I don't think you could go wrong with any two of these three. Montgomery and Gaskins both have potential to play good games this week, and Sanders has been off a little bit the past couple weeks. He had a couple bad drops in particular last week. He was wide open on a couple short pass attempts, and Sanders did drop those. I'm not sure what happened there. You're not wrong for sure. I just have faith in him, but everyone's different. You're not wrong. Montgomery has a favorable matchup. Gaskin has nobody playing in his backfield this week. So it's really anyone's guess as to who of these two will come out on top in points this week.
Yeah. Our next question coming in from a user. He asks, PPR, Cooks or Gibson for my flex? Honestly, like both these guys this week. I mean, Cooks, he's got very little when it comes to receiving threats. I feel like he's most definitely going to get at least 10 targets today, just with how slim they are with after releasing Kenny Stills and then getting Will Fuller suspended. And as for Gibson, I mean, I really like Gibson, but going up against the Steelers, I think that could be a little bit tough of a matchup. I think usually I would prefer Gibson, but I think this week, just with what everything that's going on and with the matchup, I think I'm going to lean Brandon Cooks, especially in a PPR league.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's Brandon Cooks. Yeah, actually, it is Brandon Cooks for sure. I'm going with Antonio Gibson. I like starting running backs. I don't know. I know it's a tough matchup. Brandon Cooks is a guy who could obviously go off, especially with that whittled down. And first off, quite the exotic name there, my man. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But Cooks or Gibson, I'm going to go with the slight edge to Gibson just because I like starting running backs. I know that they're going to touch the football a lot. It'll be interesting to see how Houston comes out. Obviously, Cooks has the potential to go off, and now he is a wide receiver number one with injuries and suspensions in Houston. So that's interesting. But I'd lean Antonio Gibson based on potential and guaranteed touches out of that Washington football team backfield.
Yeah. That this was a little bit tough for me because I know at the podcast at the beginning of the season, we all kind of staked our claim in like guys who we were going to ride or die for this season, and two of my guys were Brandon Cooks and Antonio Gibson. So
Oh wow.
I'm glad that they're doing well now this season, especially after Cooks' kind of slow start. Next question coming in from Robert 3333: Kirk Cousins or Taysom Hill? Kirk Cousins. Like I've been saying, he's had some really great weeks. The past 3 weeks, he's been averaging 300 yards in a game. He's also had an TD to interception ratio of 8-1 so far this season. I know he really struggled with interceptions at the beginning of the season, but he's really seemed to turn around. And also with Dalvin Cook's mild injury last week, they said that they're going to be smart in their usage of him, which to me means going up against Jacksonville, they're not going to push him too hard because they should easily win this game.
Yeah, and the other thing is I don't trust anyone who can't throw a football. I'm sorry. And Taysom Hill is one of the worst passers that the NFL has ever seen. It's just stats, you know, this guy still hasn't thrown a touchdown. He's very good running the football, but he's nothing more than a gadget player at this point in time. I think that's becoming more evident by the week. I mean, last week I had to rub my eyes and tell who was throwing the football, if it was Hendon or if it was Taysom Hill in that Broncos Saints game. Both pretty much look the same back there when they throw Hinton and Hill. I'm going with Kirk Cousins. I like Kirk Cousins. He's been hot lately. Taysom Hill, I know he gets running points, but until he gets throwing production, you can't really trust him outside of a 2 QB league, in my opinion.
Yeah, um, especially the Saints going up against the Falcons. I feel like the Falcons, they looked a lot better, and I think after losing to the Saints like they did the first time around with Taysom Hill at quarterback, I feel like they're going to have a better game plan at containing him in the running game. And also, like you said, he hasn't thrown a passing touchdown yet. That was one of the funniest stats I remember from last week was that Kendall Hinton had thrown a touchdown more recently in a serious game than Taysom Hill has with Kendall Hinton. I think throwing one in 2017, whereas last time that Taysom Hill threw a touchdown pass was in 2016.
Correct. And Hinton did his against Clemson, so at least you know, that's pretty much an NFL defense right there. Taysom Hill, I'm calling you out, buddy. Throw a damn touchdown, man. You're getting paid all this damn money and you can't even throw the ball. Throw a touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question coming in from Austin Hill. He has full PPR, A Rob, Ridley, or Woods. Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, or Robert Woods. Hmm. the Bear the Bears going up against the Lions. That's one attackable game, and also Calvin Ridley. I'm not confident in Calvin Ridley going up against the Saints defense, especially with Julio Jones looking to be back in this game. He's active. He's going to be playing in this game, so I think that Calvin Ridley's work is going to drop substantially. And Robert Woods, he's also a good option. So I'm probably deciding between Allen Robinson
Now he's saying
and
pick
Robert
two.
Woods. Oh, now he's saying pick two. Okay, that perfect then. I'm going with Allen Robinson and Robert Woods. Allen Robinson, he's really the only uh, he's one of the only guys you can trust in Chicago. He's shown that even if Mitchell Trubisky is throwing him the ball, he can still put up some good weeks for you. So I'm going with him and Robert Woods. He's been very good as of recent.
Yeah, and Robinson looked like the only competent wide receiver for Mitchell Trubisky last week. And I mean, man, you look at the Bears roster, it's a bunch of dog crap after Allen Robinson at that position. So I think that you got to go Allen Robinson and you got to go Bob Woods. I'm a big Bob Woods advocate. He rushes the ball a good amount for a wide receiver and he gets into the end zone a lot. I'm going with A Rob and Bob Woods. The rest of that Bears team is a joke. I think A Rob's going to continue propelling himself to the top of that offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Robert Woods this season, especially because I think it was last season. Um, I think this week, last season, was the first week that he got a receiving touchdown. They just weren't looking his way when it was close to the end zone.
Yeah.
But next question coming in, another one from Mike Smith. He says, for my other team, who do I start? Melvin Gordon or Myles Gaskin or Austin Eckler? Pick two, full PPR, and also at tight end, Jordan Reed, Zach Ertz, or Austin Hooper. I think for those running backs, the two that you should start should be Austin Eckler and Myles Gaskin. Melvin Gordon, I don't trust Melvin Gordon at all. I don't trust Melvin Gordon. He's been getting a lot of the work for the Broncos, but I don't think he's deserved that work so far. In their last game against Miami, he was able to get 2 touchdowns on 84 yards. That was pretty good, but before that, not really looking good. 46 yards in the week before that. Before that, he only had 18 yards on the ground, only 25 yards on the ground the week before that, but he also had 21 yards through the air. And also, let's not forget last week against New Orleans, when it should have been a run heavy game, he only got 31 yards rushing. That was because I'm kind of throwing that game out since kind of New Orleans knew that they were going to run the ball 99% of the game. So I'll throw that one out. But still, most of the season, he's been very disappointing, and I think he's going to be disappointing in this game as well.
Yeah. I like Austin Eckler, obviously. It's hard not to start Austin Eckler. And then Myles Gaskin, I've been talking highly of him. I just never trust Melvin Gordon, as Pride said, and they also have a couple other running backs out of that backfield. I'd go Eckler and Gaskin. Then his tight end goes. Ertz, is he going to be healthy? What's going to happen with Zach Ertz in Philly, especially? It's like, Ertz is back today, I guess it says, but you never know how the hell he comes back. And then Jordan Reed, he's just never looking quite great in that offense. I know early on he had a huge game, but with that quarterback position, I'm hoping Austin Hooper gets his way into the end zone like last week. I'm going with Austin Hooper.
Yeah, I think I might be leaning that way as well. Zach Ertz, he is looking to come back, and he's been one of the best tight ends over the past couple fantasy seasons, but this year it just doesn't look the same. And honestly, even though he's coming back, I feel like Dallas Goedert's still going to be taking the load of the targets, if not most of the targets. I feel like Zach Ertz might be getting 3 targets this game, which is sad since I know what he can do, but this offense is just more focused on Dallas Goedert at the tight end position now, and Austin Hooper, he he does kind of worry me. I mean,
Me
last week
too, for
was
sure.
last week was great because he had a touchdown, but he also got that touchdown on 2 receptions and 13 yards. But I mean, I like him better than Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed, his best game was in week 2 with those 2 touchdowns, and he's done slim to none since. I mean, I guess in week 10 against New Orleans, he had 62 yards on 5 receptions. But I mean, Ross Dwelly has gotten involved in that receiving game. That does worry me, so I think I'm going with Austin Hooper as well. Yeah,
Yep,
and
that was a tough one at tight end. I mean, tight ends are hard. It's kind of touchdown dependent based for tight end position.
yeah. And final question here from Austin Hill: are you starting Sanders or Dobbins over any of those three? I think this goes back to one of his questions before over A-Rob, Robert Woods, and Calvin Ridley. Honestly, no. I'm still more confident in Allen Robinson and Robert Woods than I am with Miles Sanders. If I had to start of either of those two, it'd be Sanders over Dobbins. But even then, I'm I wouldn't put Sanders over Allen Robinson and Robert Woods, especially in a full PPR league. I mean, receptions are just more important, and Sanders, if he's not getting the work, he's not even getting really too many looks out of the backfield in the receiving game. So I think I'd stick with those guys that I said before.
Yeah, I'd probably stick with those two as well. I'm usually a starting running backs advocate, but it's hard to make a case for Sanders of late over those guys, so I'd roll with those two.
Yeah. And one final question that I'm going to ask you, Tones. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I've
Let's
been
hear it.
I've been wrestling with this all week. In my flex, do I play Brandon Ayuk, David Johnson coming back from injury, Benny Snell Jr., or J.K. Dobbins?
No, this is tough. I think personally, Connor, it said that they don't expect him to be back. I believe, if I read that correctly, the James Conner news earlier said the Steelers can activate him, but he isn't expected to play. For that reason, I'm leaning Benny Snell. I think he's going to get majority of those touches in Pittsburgh, as we've been seeing him do last week. He had 16 for 60 the week before. He ran for a touchdown. I'd go with Benny Snell if James Conner's out, especially. I like him in that one.
Okay, I
Who,
think that's
who
gonna
are you
do.
leaning with?
I I was thinking Ayuk, but I'm a little worried now. I mean, I haven't really seen much with Debo Samuel also active, and so I'm worried that he's not going to get as many targets as he usually would if he was just alone in that receiving room. Um,
Yeah, I've liked Ayuk until Debo's big showing last week. That's why it makes me wonder who's gonna emerge, Ayuk or Debo.
yeah, Austin Hill is saying J.K. is going to have a breakout game against Dallas. I mean, if he does, I would be super happy in my initials league if he does do that. This defense has been looking like it's getting better over the past few weeks. I mean, I'd say it's still one of the worst in the league, but also that Ravens team, it's really up and down. And I think they showed even last week with Robert Griffin at quarterback that they still used a lot of QB runs in their offense. So that is definitely still worrying for me. I mean, these are just suggestions. I'm saying that I think Allen Robinson and Robert Woods, based on kind of what we've seen as of recently and their stats on the season, will have a better game than J.K. Dobbins. But if you are all in on J.K. Dobbins, by all means, you can play him. I If you do play him, I hope that you're right for your sake. If not, then I mean, no, no, we're off my back. I'm just saying, if I had that roster, I would play Allen Robinson and Robert Woods.
Yeah, now I'm gonna ask you one real quick before we log off here. Non PPR, Eric Ebron, Evan Ingram, or Jamal Williams.
Who was the first one again?
Ebron.
Ebron. Ebron, Ingram,
or
and
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams. Ebron, Ingram, or Jamal Williams.
Non PPR.
Non PPR. I think I might go with Jamal Williams in that one. Like you've been saying, running backs. I do like my running backs, especially when it's a non PPR league, just because. I mean, we saw Ebron and Ingram have shown that they are what is it? They are fond of dropping the football at certain times, and so I think Jamal Williams, even though he's a backup running back, I think he'll still get plenty of touches against the Eagles defense, and he'll be able to make up for it.
Yeah, he's been running well this year. Let's hope he can keep that up then.
Yeah. Okay, that's going to do it for our show. There's less than an hour before the first slate of games kick off today. We hope that you have a great time playing fantasy today. We hope you come out with a W, and being week 13, we hope that W leads to a playoff berth for you guys. That's going to do it today for Tones. I'm Pride. Have a good one.
Yep, go kick